Today, in the Legal Know, Vincent J. Russo joins us again, and we'll discuss how married couples can protect themselves when one spouse needs long-term care. It's critical that seniors get the care they need, but there's always the question, how can they afford the care? And so today we're going to find out how the Medicaid program can help. So, Vincent, it's all very confusing to me, and I know that it's probably something I should be thinking about, not the spouse part, but, but so why don't we begin right there? Just tell us, what are some of the things that a spouse needs to be concerned about?
Sure. Well, the big concern, and it's been going on now for decades, long-term care can be so expensive. Mm-hmm. Care at home can run thousands of dollars a month. In a nursing home, over $15,000 a month. And so how does one deal with that? And we have a broken system in this country. We don't cover long-term care as under our medical insurance or Medicare. So Medicaid's the only government program. And the good news, though, is that there are spousal protections when one spouse needs care at home or an assisted living facility or in a nursing home.
So are there different rules for just that, being in a facility as opposed to someone being at home?
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the basic rules here. When one applies for Medicaid, they can have up to $30,182 in assets in New York. In other states, it's only $2,000. So that's the starting point. And the spouse at home receiving Medicaid home care can have up to $1,697 a month. Okay. But what about the spouse?
Yeah.
And this is where spousal protections come in. Since 1988, these laws came in called spousal impoverishment, but they're really spousal protections. So when one spouse applies for Medicaid, believe it or not, they count the assets of both spouses. Wow. And the income of both spouses. So once we understand what the applying spouse can have, we have to look at, well, what can the other spouse have? And here are the spousal protections. They can have up to $148,620 in assets. In addition to the $30,182 the spouse can have. So that's a big benefit. So their money in the bank accounts or in a brokerage account can be protected. They can also have a residence of up to $1,033,000. So that's almost most people here in New York. Right. And these are New York numbers. They vary state by state. Right. Yeah. So those are the protections. So it allows one spouse to apply for, let's say, Medicaid home care services. And it allows the other spouse to keep assets that they need to live on in their own home. And transfers of assets between spouses are exempt. So what that means is, in a home care situation, let's get real practical.
Sure.
One spouse needs Medicaid home care, all right? And they have assets and they have income. So the first step would be for the applying spouse to bring themselves under the $30,182 amount, transfer the excess assets to the other spouse. Okay. That's permitted, no problem. Then the test is, all right, that spouse can have up to that $148,620. And if they're under that level, then the applying spouse can get Medicaid. Once Medicaid's given, then there's an income budget rule. Gets even more complicated. This is crazy for us to have to go through this. So the applying spouse can live on the $1,697, and the non-applying spouse can have up to $3,715.50. So that allows the two collectively to have about $5,000 of income each month to live on. So these are good rules. They're in place to protect not only allowing the one spouse to get Medicaid, but protect the other spouse, because if they're at home, they need assets and income to live on and to care for the ill spouse.
It seems extremely complicated, and especially we're talking about people who are elderly, more advanced in years, don't necessarily have this expertise. Obviously, you're a resource, but what is the what do most people do to try to understand their way through all of this?
Yeah, we have two types of clients that call us, the ones in crisis and the ones who want to do advanced planning. So these are protections that if a spouse is in crisis, we know that we can avail ourselves of these protections. Now, there's also a doctrine of spousal refusal. And there's some steps here that one can take. So in my example, what happens if the person had over the allowance? Well, Medicaid then would be denied.
Okay.
But then there's another step. And that step is, in New York, we call it the doctrine of spousal refusal. So we can look at this. The applicant spouse needs income and assets to live on. So they refuse to pay for the care of the ill spouse. Sounds harsh, but it's permitted under New York law.
Wow.
And then Medicaid must be approved. And the county where Medicaid is given reserves a right to bring a claim then against the refusing spouse. Some counties do, some don't. So an experienced elder law attorney needs to be involved in this. It's very complicated, but no one should lose their assets or be impoverished or have to be institutionalized because they need care and they can't afford it. Medicaid is the program allows them to access that care and get coverage, but there needs to be planning.
And, I think this is maybe anecdotally, but I think it's true. People are living longer. I had two funerals in the last month of 100-year-old people. So, this is becoming more and more of an issue. And the term of care is longer and longer, right?
That's right. I mean, my dad is with us and he's 98 years old.
Wow.
Right now, he doesn't need any care, which is great, but who knows in the future? So, yes, we are all living longer. Costs keep going up, and planning in advance then becomes so critical.
Well, Vincent, thanks once again for tackling such an important topic for us and sharing your experience with all of us and everybody who's watching us. We really appreciate it. And for our viewers, Vincent's law firm has a Medicaid guide, which can be downloaded from his website at Let's try this one more time. VJRussoLaw.com. There we go. Should just let you do that, not me. Thanks, Vincent, so much for being with us today.
My pleasure.